Thanks a lot, Rosa. So I'm Jean-Sébastien Broc from IEECP, Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, and I will complement the presentation done earlier by Bruno and Adrien that shows, let's say, the potential and the different solutions for sustainable space cooling. Now we will discuss a bit how we can promote these solutions. I will start with an overview of the EU policy framework, and then Julia Comporto will complement with the first part of this work that has screen financing schemes in European countries. For the EU policy framework, we look at it through the lens of space cooling. So most of you may be already familiar with all these pieces of legislation. And we look at it from the equipment level up to the urban level. And I will present them a bit more in details quickly. So at the equipment level, that's mostly about market regulations dealing with efficiency and environmental impact. On the one hand, the objective is to provide consumers with relevant information to purchase the relevant devices for their needs. Together, so that's the part of energy labeling, and then eco-design is here to remove from the market the least efficient devices. For air conditioners, you have on top of that specific regulations for the refrigerants with the objective to phase down the refrigerants that have a too high global warming potential. As a reminder, these are EU regulations, which means that they are directly applied in the same way in all EU member states. At the building level, that's a bit different. At the next slide, the Energy Performance Directive. The main provisions deal with the overall energy performance of buildings, and in the calculation of this energy performance, space cooling and ventilation are taken into account among the 5 main end uses. And here, in a sense, you can find the same logic as for the regulation of products. So you have the information of building owners and occupants through the energy performance certificates, and then minimum energy performance requirements to be set in national regulations. On top of that, you have provisions for the operation of technical systems with mandatory inspections or alternative approach for large air conditioning systems, together with the promotion of building automation systems, with overall, let's say, the objective to optimize the way technical systems are used in buildings. And then recently there was a lot of debate about how to boost renovation rates, and the upcoming publication of the EPP recast will now change the previous long-term renovation strategy into building renovation plan, and also introduce minimum energy performance standards for existing buildings. As it's a directive, it has to be transposed by each member state. And one thing we are currently doing in CoolLIFE is to review how every member state is specifying and addressing cooling needs in the national regulation, especially the regulations for buildings. In the next slide, we look at the highlights in the EPP recast that stress the need to better consider summer comfort overall, and to promote passive cooling techniques. So that's also in line with the solutions that were presented earlier by Bruno and Adrien. But then when you go in the text, you see that that's, let's say, injunctions for member state, but there is no mandatory provisions or particular requirements related to space cooling still in the articles of the directive, because as it was shown also by Lucas and by Bruno, the demand for space cooling is very different from one country to another. So that's definitely something to be managed at the national level. In the next slide, we see then what Lucas has presented. So the other side, so let's say the market regulation for products, and the EPBD deals with what we could say the demand side of space cooling. Then on the supply of cooling, you have provisions in the Energy Efficiency Directive, comprehensive assessment, and now with the new EED, the requirement for member states to support local authorities to develop local heating and cooling plans. And on the other hand, the Renewable Energy Directive, that I will not speak about that again. That was very well presented by Lucas. And on top of that, during the panel discussion, you will get insight from the cooling down project that also deals more specifically with the renewable part of space cooling. As mentioned by Lucas, the one thing from these provisions is that they encompass heating and cooling together, and that mostly for the moment, because space heating is more important in terms of share of energy consumption, let's say the development of space cooling from these provisions is still limited. In the next slide, we go to the urban model and the link to adaptation. So the EU framework for adaptation mostly comes from the European Climate Law adopted in 2021 that requires member states to develop national adaptation strategies and plans, and also requires the EU to adopt its own strategy on adaptation. And this European strategy reminded the importance of the health impact of heat waves, and also to prepare buildings for the future climate changes, and to in a sense, which is captured with the climate resilient buildings keyword. And it also promotes solutions that are, let's say, in a general way, nature-based solutions to address the effect of urban enhancement that were also pointed by Lucas earlier. Overall, what we see is that so far there is a lack of linkage between mitigation and adaptation strategies and measures, while there would be a benefit to address space cooling with integrated approaches. And also in the panel discussion, you will hear from the French platform CoolLIFE. That is a very good practice to support look at actions, and that consider all the solutions altogether, so from both sides, mitigation and adaptation. In the next slide, that's something that may be important in the legal basis to address space cooling. So it will probably take a bit of time before it becomes visible in the implementation by member state. But there is a new definition for energy poverty in the energy efficiency in the new energy efficiency directive, which clarifies that cooling is part of the basic needs. And here, when you read cooling, you should not understand it as everyone should have air conditioner. I hope that the presentation by Bruno and Adrien already convinced you that there are many other solutions to meet cooling needs. And so the meaning of that is that everybody should be able to keep her or his home cool enough in summer. So choosing the most relevant solutions for that. And more specifically about summer energy poverty, you will also hear during the panel discussion from another project named Cool to Rise. To end on this overview in the next slide of the EU policy framework, from this review, we identified already a few key issues that we will work on further to develop a recommendation later in the project. To develop sustainable policies for sustainable space cooling. One is to ensure that the most relevant solutions are considered. I already mentioned that one of the objectives is that, okay, air conditioner can be a solution, but that's not the only one. And we should avoid to create bias in the policies towards more air conditioning systems alone. Another issue is to make the other alternatives available. That's also something related to the supply side of the solutions for sustainable space cooling. Second key issue, group of key issues, that's to consider the impact that matter the most in terms of energy consumption and energy cost. That might not be the main criteria to decide investment. Comfort, as pointed by Adrien and Bruno, is much more important. Else, also especially considering the impact of heat waves, peak load, that's also related to heat waves. And then, depending on the segment of the building stock, you can have productivity, business conditions, etc. that can be very important. Another group of key issues is related to setting conditions for renovation schemes to improve summer comfort as well, because we know that in most cases, obviously, these schemes are meant to reduce the consumption for space heating. And the last point that is also related is to, and mentioned in my previous slide about the urban level, is to promote integrated approach in the two ways. So considering heating and cooling together. So let's say as a single thermal comfort objective, and developing strategy that address both together mitigation and adaptation. And with that, I hand it over to Julia for the review of the previous instance.
Thank you, Jean-Sébastien. Maybe there are any questions for Jean-Sébastien before I take over with the financing?
So far, there's no question.